Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to Weekends with Amit. Today, we have a special edition, so to speak. The reason we are calling it a special edition is that we are going to talk about subjects which you may have heard of before, and even some of them might have been discussed on this forum as well. But we are going to do it in a very structured way so that even people who are uninitiated into the subject will understand what we are talking about. So, not only the topic, we will make a formal introduction of our guests. And the guests are Professor Amit Goswami and Dr. Valentina Onisar. Thank you so much for joining the show today. Well, I was talking about learning more about our guests. So let's start with Valentina. Dr. Valentina Onisar is a medical doctor and she specializes in family medicine. Uh, well, it doesn't stop there. In fact, it starts from there and it becomes exciting. After having learned all the things that allopathic medicine has to do, she moved on into other things. She became a specialist in acupuncture. She became a specialist in aromatherapy. She became a specialist in homeopathy as well as yoga. Why we are giving these preambles, you will soon come to know because the subject today is quantum science of alternative therapies. And who better to address this than someone with these kinds of credentials? Now, let us move to Professor Goswami. With due respect to all the people who have enriched science in many ways, Professor Goswami has practically solved the unsolvable. That is how, even still today, a lot of people look at this problem. This problem is called the quantum measurement problem. He is the solver of the quantum measurement problem. He came up with the idea of the quantum worldview. He is the founder of Center for Quantum Activism. He is the head behind all the educational activities that we do. He is a prolific author, written more than 15 books, and he is also a prolific speaker. He travels worldwide, giving lectures, taking classes, and he appears on various shows, again, worldwide. For the last almost 40 years, he has been doing this and serving mankind. Thank you so much for being here. Now, back to our subject today is quantum science of alternative therapy. Let us start with Professor Goswami with a little bit of theory. Then we move on to Dr. Anisar to know some nitty-gritties of practice, details, stuff like that. Over to Professor Goswami.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Krishna. Well, my work prepares me adequately for being a teacher of psychotherapist, although not a practitioner. I frankly admit I never healed one person in my life, but I do teach a very important aspect of preparation of psychotherapists that is needed today. Psychotherapy traditionally has been practiced in a very objective way. This is the cognitive behavioral psychotherapy. Human beings, when they are very conditioned, live in the base level human condition dominated by, yes, the condition I, that becomes almost like a me, an object, me-centeredness, plenty of negative emotional brain circuits built into the midbrain, very little positive emotional circuits, and then there is, of course, pleasure circuits. Add that to our propensity of information processing, no thanks to the information technology that has been developing and creating revolution in our society in its own way. How do you come out of this human condition? This is the job of psychology, right? But that psychology cannot be psychology of machines, like cognitive behavioral psychology teaches us, and psychotherapy based on us just repairs the machine. Your conditioning is wrong, we'll recondition you. That's it. That's the approach. Coping mechanism. Just like a car goes to a repairman, is repaired, comes back and functions for a while, goes to the repairman again, and so forth. So it is with psychotherapy. Of course, there have been approaches which goes beyond this, like transpersonal psychology. But there is no scientific basis for transpersonal psychology. As a result of that, what has happened is that the two kinds of psychology, consciousness-based psychology and matter-based psychology, machine-based psychology, they're two distinct available therapies based on that. Yes, there has been some attempt to make a connection. We must mention positive psychology movement that Dr. Gulickman started. Good effort. But because, again, ignoring the transpersonal aspect, because positive psychology is still based on the fundamental matter-based paradigm, matter is everything, then you cannot bring this idea of meaning and purpose of human life. You cannot bring this idea that it really requires transformation for true healing, because you have to take us upwards from machine condition. If you heal a machine, that's not healing, that's curing the problem, like a car mechanic cures a car. For healing, both medical conditions or psychological disorders, we need to understand the human being better. In other words, a science based on primacy of consciousness. This is what quantum physics gives us. This is what I discovered. In the process, I also integrated science and spirituality and all our experiences under one umbrella, all our health systems under one umbrella, all our psychological paradigms under one umbrella. This is why I teach, because this new quantum science of psychology, quantum psychology, integrates all the different forces, matter-based psychology, also consciousness-based psychology. What do we add? Add tremendous things. We have made connections to the spiritual traditions, remember? And those traditions already have developed huge alternative therapies. Not only the alternative therapies that Valentina will talk to you about, that relates to physical health, but also alternative therapies of psychology based on yoga psychology. But this gives ideas like chakras, this gives ideas like meditation, various disciplines that you can follow, ideas like you can have experiences, oneness experiences of samadhi. How do you connect that into science? This is what we have accomplished in quantum science. Quantum psychology takes us through the whole gamut of psychological disorder, happiness level 0 to happiness level 1, neurosis, to happiness level 2, normal. For the first time, we really have a theory of the normal human being, positive mental health, and then have higher happiness levels that are reached. Requires transformation to take people through such happiness level. Today, psychology is not like old psychology anymore. The old psychology was just curing disorders. Now we can heal disorders, also lead them to not only positive psychology or positive mental health, but also to let them climb this ladder of happiness, really integrate negative emotions with positive emotions. That requires the transformative therapies of how to produce positive emotions using the body, using the chakras. It needs the science of the chakras. This is why we teach. We have a master's and PhD program that teaches quantum psychology, which introduces these concepts. Do people come to that? Actually, they do. Quantum life coaching is going to be the profession of the psychological profession of the future. Life coaching is already there, but this life coaching is just cognitive behavioral coaching. Doesn't go very far. Yes, it can help athletes to some extent. Even that does not go all that deep. But to get real life coaching, you need a coaching in transformation. How to have empathy, not only local empathy, which is based on an assumption of theory of the mind of the other or body languages. No, that's shallow. But empathy that connects to the other at a deep level, an empathy that we call quantum non-locality. You become one with the other, know directly how the other is feeling. Can you imagine the scope of such therapy where people know directly what is going on with the client that they are counseling? This is what we are training for. This is what we are aiming for. And we are proud to say we already have graduated master students, PhD students are ready to graduate within the next 6 months. There will be some PhDs from our institution. And we have already set up a consultancy page. You should look at our website for that, where our trained personnel will offer their quantum expertise in healing and psychotherapy. This is just an introduction to what we are doing. Today, we have really healing therapy for mothers of autistic children. We have traced the cause of autism to when the mother was pregnant, in the late stages of pregnancy. Mother's depression in that late stage plays a large role in the children's autistic tendencies. And we can now counsel people about that. We can counsel people about even mental disorders bordering schizophrenia, psychoaffective disorders. So the range that we are covering is huge. We don't discard cognitive behavioral therapy, we incorporate it in our therapies. And this incorporation, this integration is what makes quantum psychology great. Most important thing that we have done, we go beyond the rational therapy of usual psychotherapy. It's not a psychotherapy, quantum psychotherapy is not only restricted to the rational mind. It takes us to the feelings. You know, emotional stress is our regular problem. Emotional stress causes psychological disorder as well as medical disorders, health disorders, chronic disease. And we have a complete theory of both negative emotions as well as positive emotions in the body, in the heart, in our navel chakra. This is the essential part of the new training, the new therapy that we offer. We also have scope for intuition, the values, human values, practicing which people develop positive mental health. Our experts are experts in both aspects of human psychology. And this is what gives them the unique position in psychotherapy profession. So check us out. Valentina will now speak of the physical health aspect of quantum alternative therapy. Valentina?
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everybody. So it's difficult to just talk about the physical aspect. So actually, I'll go into the science of medicine a little bit. Most of our students, yes, indeed, they are in the health area, health and happiness. So medicine, psychology area, and I'm looking forward for all these wonderful people to graduate and contribute to the world even more than they are already doing. And indeed, there is this consultation page that we are just launching now. You can check it out, cqaedu.com. I think it will be posted here. And because many times we get emails about from people who would like to get in touch with the person who is practicing quantum healing. And again, it's not about somebody else who can heal you, because the power of healing, of course, exists in each of us. But you can receive the guidance, the inspiration that you need. And now, from my years of practice, since I was a child, I grew up in a family of doctors and priests, and especially in the medicine, I was involved, very curious, and also on the spiritual side. But I noticed that of course, the allopathic practice was something that seemed to be superior. And in fact, there are great advances in allopathy that can help, but there are also a lot of things that do more damage. We'll talk a little bit more about this. But in the same time, the practitioners of alternative medicine, in the same way, they are equally scornful of the allopathic practice, And then the question for me is to how to go beyond these very deep divisions among the practitioners of these two camps, to an integral medicine that both camps can accept. And the thing is that indeed we have to really go to the philosophical roots of all the medicine practices and discover that unifying bridge building philosophy. And quantum science, as you know, maybe, so is exactly that bridge, between science and spirituality. It's really the bridge which is missing, and so much we hear nowadays this term, which everybody understands it more or less. But the thing is that everybody is putting all these crisis situations that are now happening. They are very good because actually it's making us put us questions, fundamental questions, more than in the past maybe. And then again, so we go towards this the integration. We call it quantum integrative medicine, the same quantum psychology. And if you want, it's a bona fide preventive medicine. So there are again avant-garde techniques of nutrition for all the 5 bodies that we have. I think everybody here knows that we are not just the physical body. So it's the physical, the vital, the mental, the soul, which we call supramental, and the spirit. And again, if we know how to do that, we can get into disease prevention first of all. But then also you can go further into various levels of healing, and eventually, as Amit mentioned, even more. Eventually, to really discovering who you are and why you're here, what is your dharma, because all this is very important in living a healthy and happy life. If you will study the scale of happiness and so on. So maybe the most important theoretical development of this preventive integration of medicine is the contention that an elevated physiology for organs in the navel area, the heart area, has been universally available for humanity for millennia, right? And that's why this kept us away from chronic diseases like cancer. And just see what's happening nowadays. It's really a lot of more cases of cancer, a lot of more cases of dementia. It's definitely a faulty worldview, a faulty lifestyle, not to mention what's happening in our relationship. So you've been with following, especially Professor Goswami, in the latest years and all that. You're aware of what's happening with the chat GBT and all these other things. But again, the fact that we can really change the physiology, that's something really new, because I mean, we are really not the robots that the allopathic medicine started with. No, we are not robots. We are much more than that. And whatever advanced robot you can build is not going to give you what we are, you know. So again, we rediscovered actually the mechanism of changing the physiology of organs in specific practical detail, and it's called, if you want briefly, vital creativity. And then of course this has to be followed with mental creativity, but first of all you have to access the vital creativity. And if you want to start studying, if you didn't, there was the initial efforts by Professor Goswami with the book The Quantum Doctor. It was published in the 2000 something, in the and then Dr. Paul Drouin, another a conventional medical doctor, he wrote another book that can be studied. It's called Creative Integrative Medicine. And then another physician, Larry Dossi, he came again with a more integrative idea related to consciousness. But then later on, I mean, if you're interested, I think even just these last days, we have published, Amit and me, a book. It's called Quantum Integrative Medicine. It's really just been published now in USA and Canada, and it will be published this month also in Portuguese in Brazil. So that takes further all this work. So I think that book can help a lot to understand, and even there are all kinds of practices in that book. But again, as I see it, so maybe some of the major problems in the science of medicine is that there are several disparate medicine systems which are based on different health paradigms. You know, so it's the modern allopathic medicine, of course, is based on primacy of matter. It's just the material body, right, and molecular biology. Yeah, and then we speak about diseases caused of bacteria, viruses, but actually, if you think, allopathic medicine is really not effective in chronic diseases and has a lot of side effects also, you know. So again, there are many people who are suffering because of too much of that, you know. Also, going on the psychological side, immediately you are labeled as having ADHD, and actually you're literally destroyed with the drugs that are given as treatment. Yeah. But then if you go to the, if you think of the Indian and Chinese tradition, ancient people, you know, they codified what is called vital energy. And they also brought in the importance of this energy to health and healing. And thus came the idea of a vital body and the mental body, yeah, from which we call feelings and thoughts come, yeah. And then when these bodies, you know, the harmony of these bodies, it goes awry, we get sick, and especially the vital is affected. And again, so the systems, they are called Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, and nowadays, I mean, we put all such medicinal systems under the label of alternative or complementary medicine. Yeah, and then again, modern allopathic medicine is, again, it's evidence-based mainly. Yeah, so the alternative medicine systems, complementary systems, you know, they have theory, but they are based on ancient dualistic worldview. You know? And again, the quantum science is giving that needed integrative metaphysics, the consciousness is the ground of all being, in which matter and mind are quantum possibilities for consciousness to choose from. And then we go, of course, in our courses, we have a few courses on medicine, and we go in depth on processes, on quantum healing, on the creative process that you have to go through. But also we start with methods of meditation, on really just basic methods, ancient methods from various traditions. And it's a beautiful system, you know, because again, it's a progressive system, if you want, which can help from wherever we want, if we really want to be honest with ourselves. Then again, in my modern medicine, the premise is that disease is due to a mental problem, you know, if you want, for example, mental emotional stress, and then the cure is to correct the problem with the mind, and then you correct the physiology. But again, first we emphasize on the vital creativity aspect. And there are methods like Tai Chi, Qigong, quantum yoga, which is my favorite. And the goal of what we call quantum yoga is the ability to live and act from expanded, inclusive states of consciousness. And then initially, again, in all the cases, and also you will see if you work with our consultants, that initially everybody will have to work in trying to correct the main important problems that the brain develops in processing of the mind in the development, which is, of course, we have a lot of hyperactivity, lack of concentration, and the way to improve it is via concentration meditation. And then we also have so much intellectualism, which is producing a contracted consciousness. And then we learn about awareness meditation. And more. But this would be some beginning stages. And you may ask yourself, how come if I'm a hyperactive person or I'm all the time contracted, this can lead to disease and lack of happiness? Just ask yourself this question, and then you will be given answers for sure. Because there is something which is called resonance that works in the universe. And if somebody's making one step, really the universe is making thousands of steps towards that person. So again, the alternative medicine systems, such as Ayurveda and TCM, they are preventive in spirit, but the efforts still are limited because of the incomplete nature of the theories in these traditions. So you don't use them only by themselves, And in acupuncture, disease arises because of imbalances in the patterns of vital energy, or what is called qi in Chinese, how it's flowing in the body. And then you want to correct these imbalances using puncture or appropriate points of the body with needles, But again, when you say energy, that we refer to acupuncture is non-physical vital energy, so it's not to be confused with the usual manifestations of physical energy. It's really fascinating what we have. Really, it's a whole universe. I'm always happy and surprised to discover every little thing about this human body and the human bodies, actually, And in homeopathy, and now it's just to give ideas. Of course, it's a lot beyond all these theories and practices. So in homeopathy, the idea is likes cures likes. Likes cures like, So in contrast to cure by other, which is the allopathic drug found by trial and error, in allopathy. So a substance in homeopathy is producing the same symptoms in a well person as the symptoms of a diseased person is the like that cures in homeopathy. And it's interesting. It's really, for me, I used all these systems, including Ayurveda, of course, and also yoga practices and so on. So it's all of them. You just have to know what to use. Of course, you're not just going to bombard the person that comes to you open-minded, open-hearted with all of this. You have to see what is possible, and especially how to activate that vitality and to go to the cause of the problem. Of course, now Ayurveda, most of the people are familiar with traditional Indian medicine. You heard about the concept of doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Sanskrit names of the three doshas, and all these imbalances of bodily functions and movements that we all have actually to some degree or other, and you learn how to work with them in various ways. So again, this is another non-material medicine system, because the doshas, even if they manifest physical, they are caused by these imbalances in how we use non-physical vital energy as we grow up. And then we speak about herbal remedies. There's naturopathy also. And even we go into spiritual healing, of course, or quantum healing, evoking the higher power of the spirit through prayer, through methods of forgiveness, which are extremely deep. And many times this is actually the blockage that has to be worked on, before you really, really go into healing, which for me means also transformation. So there are many others I'm not going to mention, but the idea is that all the allopathic physicians, if they really want to learn medicine, we have to really come to terms with the facts that the alternative healing techniques work, and what they do, what they heal, how they heal. You need to better be open-minded and see about these imbalances of chi or prana, which is not about physical substances. Yeah, it's about non-physical substances. get in touch with the fact that we have experiences, we have feeling, intuition, which again, they are non-physical. Usually we want to just put the hand on something, yeah, and then only. So also go understand more about these paradigms in health that exist, which is focused rather on disease, not so much on healing. So on the empty part of the glass, not so much on the other thing. So, and then you see how, for example, practices of gratitude can cause a certain shift again. So it's a lot of principles that we go around, and the same, of course, the alternative medicine practitioner will have to come to terms with the fact that allopats will also have difficulties in appreciating the value of their trade, because if somebody is not able to use good scientific theories of to explain the power of these therapies, then it will be difficult for a person which is more intellectually oriented. Yeah. And again, I noticed also even in the alternative therapies, even though they can really go just becoming commercial, and even yoga nowadays, you just call it stretching. So it's a lot of things that we want to go deeper, and everybody that works with us, that we learn together with everybody, it's on these ideas, really going deeper and discovering and then sharing with others the best we can. I took a lot of time, Anu.
No problem, no problem. Actually, this subject is such, it's an injustice if we just put a few minutes to and explain tell you to explain all that. It's complete injustice. I understand the enormity of it. And I completely agree with you on this point that, look, in the last, since the allopathic medicine came into force, alternative medicines not only survived, but thrived over the last few decades. And that is only and only possible if that works. So there is no two ways about it. It works, and people have to be open minded. If I am a healer, my ultimate objective will be to heal the person in the most harmonious way. And if I close my mind to such a treasure trove of therapies and knowledge, then probably I am not doing the right kind of justice to my profession. That is my understanding. But to wrap it up, yes, we are a little bit out of time. Quickly over to Professor Goswami.
Thank you, Krishanu. I will mention two more things. Since Valentina already went into discussing 5 bodies, let me just say that ailment begins at the top level, spiritual level, and then it comes down to emotional, mental, emotional, that way. So finally, physical. And one thing we don't realize, many people realized it only when they were having COVID. COVID taught us many things, but this is one very great thing, which is that curing really does not end the disease. We have heard of long COVID, no doubt. People continue to suffer. Why? Because the hardware is, relatively speaking, fixed. But you have to continue the therapy with working on the software. This is what doctors are missing, and they're still missing. What alternative therapists do in the medical field is to teach is to fix the vital software, heal the vital software. If that was done, bulk of the long COVID problems would disappear. And then we can even engage higher. Positive emotional software heals the negative emotional aspects of emotional stress. Huge healing. And then spiritual healing, because fundamentally what is happening under the aegis of scientific materialism is to provide a deep disconnection of human mind, human consciousness, from that unity consciousness, which is the ground. Yes, we are still conscious, but in a mechanistic way. We rarely feel connected. So how to make those connections? This is where we have to think about love. This is again something that COVID taught us. Indeed, people who were laughing, they were not contracting COVID much. Women, on the average, because they are more laughing, more emotional, they were not having as much mortality under COVID as men were. Almost a factor of two difference. Love is very important. And by and large, healers are recognizing it. That's a good thing. But of course, nobody knows what love is, except people who are educating themselves with quantum science. Yes, we have a quantum science of love and relationship. Valentina and I are writing a book on it. I just finished a video series on love. You can check it out when it finally comes out. It requires some editing. And about our consultancy page, you'll find that there are people, our students, we have trained them. They will be available for relationship therapy. This is a very important place where quantum science is playing a huge role because we have identified the source of love. We have identified the stages in which love can appear in our life if we explore it properly. And yes, we can really love even unconditionally, compassionately. We can really care for people in our life in a deep way. All this is now available to you. You all have to do, look us up on our website, find a quantum therapy consultant, and see how it works for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was a wonderful session. For this therapy and the consultants, let me tell you that this is a new website that we have come up with. It is cqaedu.com. You will see this consultancy tab and you can go there. It has a lot of other information too. If you are interested, you can always reach out to us at info@amitgoswami.org. Now info@cqad.com too. You can reach out to us anytime and we'll be happy to answer you. See you next week.